Welcome to this third video on the Accounts Payable Audit. We're going to begin on page 165 of the IDEA workbook. In this exercise, we're going to analyze payment terms. It's suspected that certain suppliers are rewarding staff members for prompt payment of invoices. The number of days between the payment date and the invoice date will be calculated and then analyzed. So I'm making sure that the accounts payable is my active database and the data property has been selected. Just placing my cursor in the middle of the database, I'll do a right click. And one of the options is field manipulation. I'm going to click on the append button and I will add a virtual field. So the field name will be pay underscore days. The field type is virtual numeric. I'm not going to change that. And the number of decimal positions will be 0. The description is the number of days to pay invoice. I'll click in the parameters cell and bring up the equation editor. Here we're going to use a date function called age. And take a look at the description. It returns the number of days between two specified dates. So I'll select the age function and then in parentheses the two dates are first the pay date. I'll click on that. Insert a comma and then click on the invoice date. So there's our complete formula. Let me check and make sure it's valid. Now I can validate and exit. And back here in the field manipulation window, I can click OK to append the virtual field. We get the warning about making changes to the database. We've seen that in prior videos. So I'll say yes to continue. Now if you take a look at our database, we have a new column all the way over to the right called paydays, and you take a look at the values, those are in teal, so we can distinguish them from fields that were imported into IDEA. I'll click on the field statistics and we'll calculate statistics for all of the fields. But let's take a look at the statistics for paydays. It's the company's policy to pay all vendors within 25 to 35 days. Minimum number of days is -6. That's down here. And there are 6 negative records. Now a negative record would imply that the payment is made before the invoice date. There are also 6 zero items, which means payment was made on the date of the invoice. Here we see the maximum, which is far beyond the normal terms. And the average is 27, so that's within the range of 25 to 35. I'll go back to the database now and continue on page 169. We're going to extract all payments made outside the company's stated policy of 25 to 35 days. So in the analysis area of the ribbon, I'll go to the extract group and do a direct extraction. We've done this several times before. For the file name, I'm going to call this Payment Days Outside Policy Range. Let's bring up our equation editor. Here's the expression we want. It's in the middle of page 169 in the workbook. Not, and then we're going to use a between function. Let's see where that is. This is a comparison, and it tests whether a numeric value falls within a specified range. The field that we're testing here is paydays. That's my virtual field that I just added a few moments ago. And we're testing to see if that's between 25 and 35. So let's look at this equation. The @between function will test the value of paydays and look for values that are between 25 and 35. Putting a not in front of that looks for values that don't fall in the range of 25 to 35. Let's check to see if our equation is valid. It is. So I can validate and exit. I'm going to go ahead and click OK to do our extraction. So what we have here, if you take a look, all the records with paydays. Let's sequence this. If I double click, we'll sort all of our records in ascending numerical order by paydays. So if you take a look at what we have here, what we don't see is anything in the range of 25 to 35. We've got a total of 80 payments. Our control total, which is the amount, matches what we have in the middle of page 170 in the workbook. So I'm going to close this database, and you can take a look at the comments near the bottom of page 170. Let's continue at the top of page 171 in the IDEA workbook. Our next test is to make sure payments are being made to authorized suppliers. In order to do this, we've got to join two databases. So let's first make sure that accounts payable is the active database, and I've got the data property selected. If I do a right click anywhere in the database, I can open up the field manipulation. And let's take a look at what the fields are in the accounts payable database. Notice that SUPNO the supplier number is a character field of length 4. I'm going to cancel. I have to open up the authorized supplier database. And if I do the same thing, notice that we have SUPNO here as well. I'll do a right click, field manipulation. SUPNO is a character field, but notice that the length is 7. Now we'll have to see if that's going to be a problem. I don't think it will be because the leading characters are going to be the same in both databases. But it's just something that I want to note. I'll click cancel here, and we'll do the join between these two databases. I have to start by making accounts payable the active database. In the analysis tab, in the relate area, I'm going to click on join. This brings up the join databases window. The primary database will be accounts payable. I'm going to select authorized suppliers as my secondary database. I want to change the file name to supplier verification. And let's specify what we're going to be matching between these two databases. So from the primary database, and I'm on the top of page 174 right now, I'm going to select supplier number from the list of fields, and then I go to the secondary database and also select supplier number. From these options that tell us which records will be selected, I'm looking for all records in the primary file. Now I can click on OK to join the two databases. So here we've done the join, and you'll notice, just as an example, we've got the match between supplier number, which came from our primary database, and SUPNO with a 1 at the end that came from the authorized supplier. I'm going to go to the history property, and I'm going to expand the section for the join databases task. So this is telling us exactly what happened. There were 999 records in the primary file. There are 8 unmatched primary records. Notice as well that there are no unmatched secondary records. Now we want to reconcile the control totals for both amount and total previous year. For the amount field, we have a control total for the supplier verification database of 34,145,000 plus. If I return to the accounts payable database, we see that the control total matches. Now let's go back to supplier verification, and let me select the data property. We want to calculate a control total for the total previous year. That's actually off to the right, so let me move the screen around a bit. This is the field. In order to perform this reconciliation, we're going to summarize on the supplier number. So I'm at the very bottom of page 175. From the Analysis tab in the ribbon, in the Categorize group, I'm going to check Summarization. I'm going to select SUPNO as the field to summarize. Now I'm continuing at the top of page 176 in the workbook. I'm not going to select any fields here in Numeric Fields to Total. I'll click on Fields and select Total Previous Year. That's a field that I want to include. I'm going to name the database Supplier Analysis Control Total. And now I'll click on OK to do this summarization. So what we've done is we have summarized by supplier number. And this is giving us a total for the previous year for each supplier. Let's calculate the control total, total previous year. And notice that the control total is 29,720,000 plus. Okay, let's go back to our authorized supplier database and note that the control total there is 30,202,000 something. As shown in the middle of page 176 in the workbook, the difference between these two figures is $482,264.46. We're going to have to do further analysis to figure out why we have this difference. So I'm going to make authorized supplier address my active database. It already is. And notice I've selected the data property. From the Analysis tab, in the Explore group, I'm going to click on Duplicate Key and then Detection. We want to output duplicate records. And we'll make the file name Authorized Supplier Duplicate Key. I'll click on Key and select the supply number field, the supplier number SUPNO field. And we'll click OK and then OK again to run the duplicate key detection task. So we're seeing two different suppliers with the supplier number W007. One is the Matt Cash Company and the other one is Which Products. Note that Which Products had a total previous year of $482,264.46. That's where we were off. That's the exact amount we were off under total previous year. Now, how did this happen? Because we had two suppliers with the same key, the second one was dropped during the join. We want to follow up with management to determine which supplier is the correct one. And we also want to follow up with management that there's a weakness in internal control if the company is reusing supplier numbers. The supplier numbers should be unique. So as you see near the bottom of page 177, the client has informed the audit team that the which products supplier had a balance in the previous years, but in the current year they don't have any balance because they're no longer in business. Therefore, for our current analysis, we should be ignoring which products. Let me go to the File tab, Database, and close all databases. I'm just going to repeat that to make sure it worked. Okay, no database is open, and now I'm going to open the supplier verification database. I want to extract all unmatched records. So we saw previously that we had 8 unmatched records, and those were records from the primary file. There were no unmatched secondary records. What I want to do is to locate those unmatched records in the supplier verification database. Now, if we scroll down, there we go. We notice here are records where supplier number from the authorized suppliers database was blank. And if we count them up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the unmatched records. I've actually identified them here by inspection. And notice they're all supplier number M100. But we're going to go ahead and extract So I'm going to the Analysis tab, the Extract area, and I'm going to do a direct extraction. Let me give this a name, Payments to Unauthorized Suppliers. And the formula is going to be is blank. So I'm looking for blank numbers. I'm using the is blank function. And I'm looking for the supplier number from the authorized supplier database. So that's sup.no with the 1 added at the end. Check to see if this is a valid expression. Yes, it is. Validate and exit, and let's go ahead and perform the extraction. And those are the very same 8 records that we had already identified. Notice the total here, total amount, $501,515.94, which matches the amount shown near the top of page 178 in the workbook. Let's close this database. Now we're going to analyze payments by supplier to identify large movements for this year compared to the prior year. So using the supplier verification database, which is now open, I'm going to summarize or total the amount field for each supplier. Then we're going to identify suppliers where total payments have either increased or decreased by 25% in the past year. We're also going to create editable fields so that we can mark items for further investigation and also be able to add our own comments. So supplier verification is the active database. I've selected the data property. Now I will go to the Analysis tab of the ribbon, and in the Categorize group, I'll select Summarization. We have a choice as to whether to use quick summarization or not. In this case, we could use quick summarization because there is only one field in the key, supplier number. However, for this exercise, we're not going to use quick summarization. It's an option, but we're not going to use it. In the Fields to Summarize area, we've selected SUPNO, and then in the Numeric Fields to Total box, we're going to select Amount. I'm not going to select Total Previous Year because we'll select it as additional information. So we'll go ahead, click on Fields, and we're going to select Payee, Supname, and Total Previous Year as the additional fields we want to include. I've selected those three just by clicking on them. Then I'll click on OK. We're going to accept this option to create the database. We're not going to create a result, which is a report. And we're not going to enter any criteria for the test. So there's nothing in this area. The file name for the output database is going to be Payments by Supplier. And now I've got it all set, so I should be able to click OK and run the extraction. Okay, let's take a look. We've got the number of records field. This tells us the number of payments per supplier. And working at the top of page 179 of the workbook, I'm going to sequence the database in descending order by account sum. So if I click here, double click here once, that's ascending order. Double click again, we're going in descending order. And what we have is the same as the table shown on page 179. How many records do we have? 48. Let's get a total. So we'll take account sum as a control total, and we get the same amount as shown at the very bottom of page 179. Let's move to the top of page 180 of the workbook. We're going to extract all suppliers where total payments have either increased or decreased by more than 25% during the past year. I'll keep my payments by supplier as the active database, I'll go back in the analysis area of the ribbon. Under the extraction category, I'll do another direct extraction. The file name in this case is going to be large movements. We're given the equation to use, so let me open up the equation editor. There's a numeric function for absolute value. And we're looking at the absolute value, and it's a pretty complicated expression. First of all, it's the amount sum minus the total previous year, and we're multiplying that by 100 because we want it as a percentage. So we're making it something on the scale of 0% to 100%, 0 to 100. And we'll divide it by total previous year. So we're looking for percentage change compared to the total previous year. And we're going to check to see whether or not that change is greater than 25, which in this case is representing 25%. So let me make sure this is a valid formula. It is. And let me take a moment to review what we have here. We're finding the absolute difference between amount sum and total previous year. Amount sum is this year's total. Total previous year is last year's total. The difference could be positive or negative. The absolute function makes it always a positive number. We'll multiply by 100 because we're working with percentages here, and then we're comparing it to last year's total. And we want to see if the change is greater than 25%. I'll go ahead and validate and exit. And back here in the direct extraction window, we're going to do something we haven't done previously. We're going to create fields. I'm going to add the two fields shown near the bottom of page 180 in the workbook. The first field name we're going to call test. The type is multi-state. The length is 1. There's no decimals, and the parameter field should be -1. The description will be yes, no, or not applicable, NA. The second field is going to be called comment. And this type will be editable character with a length of 100. This is where we can put in our own comments. The parameter is going to be the quote marks. Let's make sure that's valid. And the description is simply additional comments. Now what's going to happen is that when we do the extraction and create a new database, we will add these two additional fields to that database. I'll click OK. I'm working on the top of page 181 in the IDEA workbook. And now I'll click OK to do the direct extraction. So here we have large movements. Notice our results are the same as those shown on page 181 of the workbook. We've got 14 suppliers indicated right here, and our control total matches the one shown in the book. These suppliers have a change in payments between this year and last year that's greater than 25% of their payments last year. The test and comment fields are empty, but those are editable fields where we can make changes. So we discover that the following suppliers may need further investigation: F123 and F130. We've also got 3 suppliers that don't need any further investigation. So let's go ahead and click on the test field for these suppliers, starting with F123. Okay, we're just getting a warning that editing a field may make the currently applied control total criterion index invalid, but that's not a problem. That's what we want to do. Notice that we can change the contents of these fields by clicking. So let's put a red X here because we want to do further investigation, and we'll do the same thing for F130. For M025, I'll just leave a check mark. The same thing for R025 and for W007. Just a way that we can identify what we've checked out, what needs further examination. Now I'm at the top of page 182 of the workbook. For supplier F123, I'm going to put a comment in: investigate reason for large increase in payments. So I'll enter the same thing for supplier F130. So we've got some notes to do further follow-up on those 2 suppliers. If I go to history, we'll just notice that all of these modifications get recorded. Now I can go to File, Database, Close Database. Let's do that once more. File, Database, Close all open databases. And we've completed the exercise. Please take a moment to review the audit findings that appear on page 183 of the workbook. This concludes the 3rd and final video on the accounts payable audit.